Hello and good morning or evening, whichever replies. Welcome to the first, but certainly not the last, quiet moment with me. This is not a visual thing, but a thing that you can close your eyes and just listen to what I'm about to say and talk about. Share a few thoughts at the end, but just take a moment from your day and I invite you just to close off the world, close your eyes, grab your favorite beverage. Mine today is Mountain Dew. And just spend a few moments of just quiet, thoughtful time. All right. Today's passage is called The Trials Are Harder Than the Growth. Little something I was thinking about and just decided to write on. The trials are harder than the growth, I guess. I don't know anymore. I know who I am. I know what I have done and not done. I know my heart and I know that God loves me. I know this. I confess this. I fight daily to believe this. Then things happen that make me gasp spiritually. Things and people happen and fall in some oddly familiar pattern. I have to wonder if I ever fought so hard to do the spiritual journey, would they even have happened? The word that keeps coming to mind is count it all joy. Joy? Your very character under fire? The world would never understand that even with that, even when you have not one way to prove your innocence, you trust God. You have to. I have to. I have to believe that this in itself is larger than the test and has nothing to do with the faces or the things causing it. Jesus stood and asked the lady to be stoned, "Woman, where are your accusers?" That's how that story ends. I feel right now sometimes the woman prior to that, when they stood ready to punish her. No judge or jury, just a predetermined guilt and the circumstances whispering that nothing said would adjust that or ease it. It was a crime that if I was the one with the rock, I would have to ask myself, would I have thrown it? See, that's the question. If I'm honest, if I'm presented with the same circumstances and evidence, would I have tossed it as hard as I could, no questions asked? The person not seeking godly relationship would probably say yes. I would revive them and probably toss it again. That, however, is not really the question, just the truth of the matter. We have double standards. When in a position to accuse, we have no mercy. When accused, we expect it. Neither of neither are what God would want us to do. Grace is grace, right? I would like to say I believe so. Growing is learning what you need to change. And that comes from seeing yourself as God sees you. I promise. Be it something small or big, our self assessment doesn't match His. That said, if God treated us how we decided to treat others, when it comes to standing in judgment or as we judge something we're not even called to do, we would probably be appalled or at the very least in shock. Even more so because his assessment of us is just. He is the witness. He saw the evidence and he is the judge. We spent weeks on fruits of the spirit at the church. Basically, to me, the follow up to the question of what would Jesus do? So why am I shocked about being called out on things spiritually? I want to say I am, but honestly, I am more frustrated at the person I want to be. I'm still in the process of becoming. Sometimes, if I'm really, really honest, I harp on all the good old changes I have made. I have made, right. Let me correct that. All the changes God's grace has helped me make and lean heavily on them. It is like a child in middle school proudly harping on knowing that 2 plus 2 is 4. That's great, and it is. But that is something that child's first grade brain learned. And you definitely should have more to bring to the table, especially if you want to be a teacher or an example to, say, a third grader. See, saying Jesus saves and God will provide is the 2 plus 2 speech. Testifying how God changed you and blessed you is, oh, say, the fifth grade stuff spiritually. But that middle school and high school growth spiritually is how you are living. Are you showing fruits or are you always complaining? Hmm. Do you count it all joy? Does your life say what your mouth says? Or are you folding and saying, this is way too hard? My proudest moment came when my granddaughter started rattling off multiplication, her 3 times table at that. Not only right, but quickly. I can remember tears, yes, tears, as we could barely get through them, let alone way up to 3 times 12. Her conclusion then was, this is just too hard. I even tried putting addition stuff into practice, a little cheaty cheat, if you will. If you know the first number, 3 times 1, the rest should be pretty easy. Like 3 times 1 is 3. So, by that logic, 3 times 2 becomes 3 plus 3, which is, of course, 6. And 3 times 3 becomes 6 plus 3, and so on and so forth. You're welcome if you're struggling with the kid with multiplication. To my dismay, however, it wasn't the multiplication she was now struggling with, but the addition. Revelation. If you're struggling with the simple things, God will provide, Jesus saved me, God is my source, how will you trust Him when everything is due? And all you have is your trust in God. More importantly, your doubt or your fault may cause someone who is just starting to believe God is their source to fall or falter, to adjust to giving the quote unquote wrong answers. The trials are far more revealing than the growth. God provides, God is my source, means more to the person who watches God move in your life. And even when it seems hopeless, here's you say, I'm going to trust Him anyway. And even more profound, when the miracle happens and God moves and you don't give them a self-absorbed reason, but says, God had me, He always has me. Now you're sounding like a person that knows high school faith. Now you're sending Now you're sounding like a teacher who can confidently tell those spiritually younger than you, God provides. He's the way, the truth, the light. Does it feel like you're inconveniently being pushed and shoved around? Good. To be honest, I typed God at first and then typed good, but honestly, God would probably be the right term there. God calls us out. His grace forgives our shortcomings. He knows we have. Keyword, forgives. But he also calls us to respond if but he also calls us to respond from it. But honestly, for example, I love my granddaughter, but 3 times 4 has to be 12. No matter how many tears she cries or cried, it doesn't matter what else she ever learns. When that question comes up, she has to, with confidence, go 3 times 4 is 12. Even when her granddaughter is learning it, guess what? It will still be 12, even long after we're gone. Yes, 3 times 4 will equal 12. Jesus saved. God is our source. Has to be that solid in your spiritual growth that no matter what happens, no matter who you ask or who asks it of you, it is the foundational faith. Every single part of your walk depends on you knowing. I hand her this little chart and she fills it out. And I help her with the stuff she's stuck on. And I'm pleased to say she gets more and more done each time. This trial I spoke of earlier, this spiritual chart, God's grace is helping with things I'm stuck on. So I count it all joy. He didn't just put an F on a paper and told me I failed. No matter where you are in your walk, this journey, this spiritual growth, don't forget the basics. 2 plus 2 is indeed 4. God loves you. But be bold enough and brave enough to also understand 3 times 4 is 12. God's grace is sufficient. God bless you on your test. May His grace always cover you. Those were my thoughts. And my thoughts on that is how grateful I am that God is allowing me to go through these trials. And I pray humbly that He shows me where I'm falling short. And my little challenge for you, when you feel these trials are just way too hard, that you get back to the basics and that you understand that God only wants you to see where there's room for growth and that He gives us grace to do it. All right, guys, that's where I'm going to kind of wrap it up. But before I let you go, I just want you to know God loves you and you got this. And I love you too. Have a great week, guys. Thank you for spending just a few quiet moments with me. Bye.